So, firstly, there are a few topics that I would like to discuss as part of this session. So, what technology to choose? So, this entire session is going to be on how to start or switch your career into automation testing. So, very first question most of you would have is what technology to choose. So, I will be speaking about that, whether you have to select Selenium Java, Selenium Python, open source technologies, or licensed tools, all that we will be discussing, and how to always stay relevant in the market with the AI taking over the market. Many of you might be having the question. So the AI is already able to do what I'm doing. So what am I going to do? So we will discuss on that as well, and how I started or switched my career in automation engineering, and so can you. So we will discuss all the tips and tricks on all the details that I put into my career so that I have come here. So yeah, and the next one is how to build your resume. Why? Because after you have prepared yourself as an automation engineer and now you are ready to switch your job into an automation profile. So then what you need to put into your resume so that your resume or your profile gets picked up amongst all the hundreds and thousands of candidates. And the next would be how to prepare and ace your interview. There, I'll also be speaking about what you have to present and what you have to take away from every interview that you have to attend. And finally, we'll be having the Q&A session. So, what technology to choose? Many of you might be having the question. I am hearing about Java, I'm hearing about Python, I'm hearing about JavaScript, I'm hearing about Selenium, I'm hearing about Cucumber, TestNG, and whatnot, and what and where I should start learning. So I would say first analyze yourself, analyze the market, and always have two technologies in your pocket, minimum two. So one should be the most learned, that is where you have more demand, and there may be more supply as well, yet have that because that technology is always going to prevail. So one such example is Selenium and Java. And the next that I'm going to say is always have one less supply and more demand technology. So that is Selenium and Python, for example. There are a lot more. Say we have a robot framework, we have high test frameworks, which has less supply, but there is a high demand in the market after last year's huge hiring for Selenium Java candidates. So now all of us have learned Selenium Java, but nobody turned our eyes towards Python. But since Python is one of the most powerful languages which caters for AI and machine learning as well, so we as automation engineers are also having the expectation set to know Python as well. And next is the tech that fits your current skill set. So analyze what you already know. Say if you're a manual tester and if you say you do not have any coding experience at all. So in that case, I would suggest you can personally start with Java first and then learn Selenium. Because Selenium, whenever people say Selenium, Selenium is one of the buzzwords these days. But many of us do not know what Selenium itself is. Selenium is only to automate UI, which means the web UI alone and not any other Windows application. So only if your application, only if your client's application resides inside a web page, then you can use Selenium. But that is not the only technology that you have to learn. Selenium is merely a library which can be used through any programming language. So say for instance, if you're learning Java, you can use Selenium. If you're learning Python, you can use Selenium, but you need your base. So that basement is going to be the programming language. So always know the core of any programming language, be it Java, be it Python, be it JavaScript. Alright, so always learn one coding language to the deep. So if you learn Java, it is easy to learn Python. So I very recently, about 1.5 years ago, transitioned myself from Selenium Java to Selenium Python. And I have been quite comfortable with Python now. So we will discuss about that shortly. Before that, so if you are a manual tester, so you need to learn at least one programming language, but I would strongly suggest you go for Java. Why? Because that will always be your fallback mechanism. So a lot of companies have already built their project on Selenium Java. So always the demand is going to be there for Selenium Java. But this year you might have seen the surge has come down. Selenium Java curve is coming down. So a lot of people have been asking me, why is there no hiring or less hiring for Selenium Java? It is because last year the entire hiring happened. So Selenium Java, even though you know, you should also know something else. Like Prathamesh was also saying, you have to always know one more, at least one more language. All right. Next, if you are in your current project, you are already working as a manual tester, you know the functionality of that project, but you want to enhance your career into automation, but you know the project but you do not know the technology. So in that case, I would suggest you already may have an automation team, and you may be excited, or you may be aspiring to become one of those automation engineers. So in that case, I would say know what technology they are using. Don't shy away from asking the automation engineers, may I know what kind of technology you are using to automate? I am also aspiring to become one like you. So could you please tell me what kind of technology you are using, so that I can also prepare for the same, and then I can also work with you. So in that instance, they will tell you, this is the technology that we are using, this is the framework that we are using, so you can aim at learning that. All right. And the last one is always know the market trend, which means you, like I said, know one more supply and more demand technology, and always know one less supply and more demand. So even when the more supply and more demand technology comes down in the hiring curve, you can always stay ahead of the curve when you know one technology which has less supply. So when it comes to Selenium Python, you will be the one person who is knowing that. Always stay in the market trend. Now that AI also has come into play, you should know where and how to use it, and where and how not to use it. We will discuss about that in a short while. And then train yourself in one common and one niche technology. So that is the example that I gave. Selenium plus Java is your fallback mechanism, and Selenium plus Python will be your go-to mechanism. All right. So Vanshika, we'll be taking up the questions towards the end of the session, correct?
Yes, Srinidhi, we'll take the question
All
at the end.
right.
So if you want, we can also take it in the middle.
Yeah, so if anybody has any questions, you can simply jot it down, so that after each section, I can answer your questions, and then we can move ahead. Because in case you have any doubts in between, we can always speak of it and then move to the next section. Does anybody have any questions at this point? All right.
So,
Yes, Vanshika.
yeah, sorry. So there's
Yeah, no
one
problem.
question from Karthik.
Okay.
He's asking, learning is always fine, but if we don't practice, high chances that we may forget how to deal with it.
Yeah.
So that's the only
So,
question.
correct. A very good question indeed. So, what I usually do is I train people. So, even if currently the project that I work on is not Selenium Java, but I have worked on Selenium Java for 5 years, and for the 2 years I have not been working on it. So, how I do it is I always teach people, I always train people, because there is always people who is looking for learning such skills, correct? So Selenium plus Java is like a long forgotten technology for me when it comes to working. But to keep myself ahead, what I do is I always read about it. I post on my LinkedIn about Selenium Java, so that it does not become irrelevant to me. So I also tend to forget things, but as a human, that is our human nature. But then there is always a give back to the community, correct? So always there will be people who are looking to learn Java. In that space, go teach them, train them. So what happens is teaching is the best way of learning, correct? So in that is how I keep myself into all the technologies, because there are people who will always need your guidance. So reach out to them, they'll eventually start reaching out to you asking for doubts. So that is how I keep myself relevant in all the skills that I have learned so far. Is that all, Vanshika, for now? Or okay, so I guess the next question might be to test drive.
Yeah, so we can take those questions at the end. We can
All
continue with
right.
the presentation.
All right. So the next point is how to always stay relevant in the market. Especially, this is one of the most asked questions in my recent LinkedIn sessions and all. Which means with ChatGPT, it is so powerful. Like if you ask it to write a code to automate the entire Gmail login, it will do it in matter of 60 seconds, not even less than that. But we would have to do everything and do the setup, etc., etc. But how to use the AI and how to not use the AI, so that is one of the points. But before going in there, always stay in at least one most needed open source technology. So with ChatGPT, AI, and all, they will have their subscriptions coming up. Not always it is going to be free. So someday, and already you guys know that the subscriptions have started coming in for ChatGPT where you have to pay. So do not worry that AI is already doing so much. You will also be able to do it, but then know where to make use of the AI for yourself. Before jumping into that, always learn at least one open source technology. Why? Because there will be lot of companies who do not want to invest on licensed tools when you already have so much powerful open source tool present in the market. So that is why Selenium has always been the buzzword in automation engineering. Why? Because Selenium is a UI, web UI library which is open source, which means you don't have to pay, you don't have to stay in any company to wait for the license. So it has been completely free ever since it has been into the market. So Selenium is one such example where it comes to UI automation. However, you also have API automation, you have backend automation, you have DB automation. So all that, know what libraries come as open source where you do not have to pay, because a lot of companies have been running with automation with open source technologies itself. Next, never stop upskilling. Now, I think Karthik had as a previous question where how to always not forget what we have already learned. Similar to that is what this thing is also. When you don't want to forget what you have already learned, it does not mean that you have to stay in that same technology for a very long time, because eventually once you start learning and you are ahead of the curve, you will be expected to train your juniors. That is how the IT industry works, right? So we will have all the KT sessions, the upskilling sessions, all that. But at that time what will happen is you become a senior, your juniors would have learned all that you already know. Then if you want to call yourself a senior, you have to at least know one technology more than what all others know in your team. So never stop upskilling. So that is the only thing that is going to keep your job secure and make you relevant in every day's market. So with a chat gpt, learn how to use it. If a robot framework has come in, if selenium python has come in, selenium javascript has come in, make sure that you are knowing at least something. Make sure that you know at least one latest technology in depth. So never stop upskilling, never stop learning, never stop training. Next, keep yourself one step ahead of the curve, and that is going to be your backup plan. So usually what happens is companies tend to hire freshers, right? So what will happen? We become more senior, and we a lot of things are expected out of us. So in that case we need to stay ahead of the curve, we should to take more responsibility, but at the same time always know something that is latest in the market, and always know how to project yourself. So we will speak about how to project ourselves when you're in a crowd, when you are in a big team, say you are in a team of 50 people and you want to stand out. So how do we do that? So all that we will discuss shortly, but let me keep this more relevant to automation engineering itself for the time being. Know the AI's capabilities and loopholes. So now with ChatGPT in place, you know that if you want to write a code, you can simply go type in write me a code to automate Gmail login page, and it is going to give you the entire code in few seconds. But then, say for instance, you have a latest technology which came in, and ChatGPT is only trained until 2021 data. So in that case, AI may keep learning from you, but it already has a data set which is only until 2021, where we are already ahead of it by 2 years. So know what it knows and know what it cannot do. Exploit it, make use of it, learn what it can and cannot do. All right. So that is something that you have to do yourself, and know the capability and know the loopholes. Be an E2E automation engineer. Very, very underrated statement. Learning Selenium does not end the automation journey. You have to become a full stack tester. Like you might have heard, full stack developers, full stack engineers, all that. So what do? They develop UI, they develop the backend, they develop the middleware. So usually, this is the basic three layers that I'm saying when it comes to any application. You will have the backend where every operation is happening, and you will have the front end, which is the face of the application, which is a web UI that you are web UI or a Windows application that you see, the user interface. But the one that is connecting the backend and the front end is called the middleware. So that is where this API automation comes in. So you might also have heard what kind of jobs you can expect out of automation. So two things that you'll hear: UI automation, API automation. Do you know what API is? API is the middleware between the back and front. So when you know how to automate the front end and the middleware, you still do not become a full stack engineer. But then you have to know how to automate the back end as well. The back end might be a database. So you should also know how to automate a database, how to read a database, how to write a database, all that you should know. So these three are the basic three things that you need to know when you want to become a full stack automation engineer, which means you do not just know how to automate a UI, but if your project requires a person who can test the backend as well as the API, you should be able to suggest that no, this can be done through automation itself. You don't have to have manual work for this. So that is the level of end-to-end automation engineer that you have to become. So any questions before we jump into the next session? All right. So the next is, so we have discussed all the prerequisites or how to choose, how to stay relevant, all that. But how to start your career in automation testing. So how I did, that is what I'm going to let you guys in on my secret. So, firstly, I've always made sure that I have a learning mindset. It is not like you have learned so much, you can stay confident, you can stay stagnant. No, because technology is something that keeps evolving. You have to keep learning, learning, learning. Not that you have to stop anywhere. A lot of companies are providing you your learning platforms, and today Test Tribe is doing such a great job in providing all the courses. So make sure you make use of it and keep learning when and where you can. And then have the practice of writing notes. This is very, very essential, and I have always been doing this. So for me, you can either write your notes on a piece of paper, or you can write it on your tablet. If you are technically ahead, you can very well do that, because writing notes is the one that is always going to be like a quick revision for you. So save all the web pages that you have been going through while you were preparing or learning your automation journey. So in that case, this writing notes is the one thing that is going to give you the advantage while you have to attend an interview. So while you attend an interview, immediately you cannot go and browse through all the topics. If you have your notes, you know where and how you have highlighted it, you can simply go through it, you can take the quick revision notes. And how quickly you want to become an automation engineer. So this is one of the things that is going to tell you what technology to choose when you're starting off or switching your career to automation. Say you have a timeline of only 1 month. So in that case, choose something that you can learn immediately. So if you are a coder already, if you know Java or if you know Python or any programming language, it is going to be easier for you. But then if you do not know coding, do not worry. We are in 21st century where we have so much technologies which is going to cater everyone's needs. So if you do not know coding at all, so one thing that you can do is you can go for low code automation. So robot framework is one such tool which is open source. It is not like you have to get the license for it to for you to learn it. Rather, you can go, you can install robot framework and very well start doing the low code automation, which means the code will look very, very simple, just like any uh, language. It will simply look like English language. So it is going to, if you take the Selenium library as part of the robot framework, the keyword that you're going to give is open browser. So that is the only keyword. Like if you look at it, you will be easily able to understand. And also why I suggest, if you do not know coding, go for robot framework is because it has such good documentation. So unlike Java, unlike Python, like even though we have these official pages, for robot framework, there is one official page where you can go to any library that is being used by robot framework, and you will be able to find your code very easily with examples. So that is why I suggest non-coders to go for robot framework. But we still have no code frameworks also coming in. But I would suggest that you go for something where the documentation is very easily available, so that it is easy for you to learn when you have very short period of time for you. And next is choose the technology wisely with your timeline, with your project. So you know your situation more than anybody else. Assess your situation, whether you want to upskill yourself in your current project, whether you want to switch your career from manual testing to a different company. So all that requires different type of preparation. So if you are already in the project and if you want to move to automation, then the learning part alone is enough. And then you can go to your manager, you can speak, you can switch to automation. But then if you want to move to a different company, the pressure is a little more, where you have to prove yourself, where you have to answer the questions, you have to do the coding, you have to showcase your skills. So that level of learning is what is needed when you know what situation you are in and know your goal. Again, similarly, the previous point and this are more synonymous. Know your goal and put the efforts accordingly. And okay, moving slightly out of the automation zone, which we have been speaking of so much. Any questions or shall we move into how to build a very good resume for you to get your first interview call? Okay. So, how to build a professional resume. So, this is how I have been doing it ever since I started planning to switch a job previously. Firstly, know the recruitment hierarchy. First, if you're reaching out to people on LinkedIn or any platform, know who they are. Know if they are a recruiter, know if they are a referral. So, mostly people who are referral, they have only the capability to refer you, but beyond that, they do not have the capability to hire you. But when you know the recruitment hierarchy, say for instance, a recruiter is reaching out to you, then you should be able to give them the best resume that you have. So know who is on top, know if it is a recruiter who is going to look for your resume, because in larger companies like MNCs you will have a separate recruitment team. But when you come to a smaller product based companies, there will be the technical people itself who are going to reach out to you. So know the hierarchy first before you reach out to people, or before speaking to people who have already reached out to you. Then mention your skills in a separate section. It is very, very, very important. Like, I receive a lot of resume. I also conduct interviews for my previous as well as current firms. So what happens is I receive a lot of resume, but then they have essays and paragraphs written. No, don't do that, because when someone as a recruiter or as a hirer, when we receive so much resumes, so we would like to see the skills on top. We would like to see it on top so that it is easy for us to go through the entire resume. And hardly the recruiter is going to spend 1 or 2 minutes on your resume. So that 1 or 2 minutes is what you have to make the most out of. Put your skills on top. Highlight the skills that you're most confident about. Lowlight the skills or bring the skills lower. We will speak about that shortly. So always make sure to mention your skills in a separate section and keep it to the point. If you have done some project, jot down the points point by point. Do not write an essay. Do not write a paragraph about what you have done in the project. Write a maximum of 4 to 5 lines, but make sure you are putting it in bullet points. Next, highlight what you want the recruiter to see first. When I said put your skills on top, don't stop just by writing the skills there. Highlight the ones, make it bold, make the ones that you want the recruiter to see first. Because as you can see, in if you open a new newspaper, what is the first thing that you see? You don't read the news, read the headlines, because that is bolded out and that is in larger font. So that is how the eye catches data. Next, speak of your achievements. See, you might have been awarded certain achievement awards, right? So, in your firm or in your college, call that out. Speak of your efficiencies. Never shy away from mentioning your least work technologies. So for me, it was Azure. So I had only worked for 1 to 2 months in Azure automation. So in that, there were few technologies called Service Bus, Key Vaults, all that. Even though I had only worked to one or 2 months, I was able to say, if you give me this job, I can get it done, because I had done it for my previous organization. But then if they go more technically, I may not have been able to answer it. But then be transparent. Be sure what you know of, and be sure to tell them, so this is what I have worked on, I am aware of this technology, but this is what I've extensively worked on, and this is what I would like to be assessed on. Be transparent about what your pronounced skills are. Rank your skills. This is very, very important while writing your resume. If you know UI automation as the highest one, like you have extensively worked on UI automation, put that on top. If you have worked on SQL automation as the least, put that in the bottom. So let them read it out and let them see what you're fit for, because that is the interview that you will ace in. All right. So this is a glimpse of my resume that I have been using. So if you see, this is how I designed my resume. This is only part of it. It was a single page resume. Even though I had about 6 to 7 years of experience, I ensured to keep my resume to one single page. I did not take it to the second page. I accommodated everything into this. So this is possibly how, when they open, they are going to see. If you see here, there is this UI Selenium present, UI securely, because these are the top skills that I have worked on. And the quality assurance is what I have worked on the next. So this is how I have brought out my technology as a top to bottom list. Okay. So the next is how to prepare and ace your interview. Um, any questions? If the previous section, if not, let's move on to this. Okay. So, read the job description carefully for the interview you're going to attend. This is very, very, very important because for us it is quite underrated because whenever we see selenium automation hiring, we will simply go ahead and apply. But we never read the job description because in the job description is where they are going to explain what kind of responsibilities you are going to take up as part of the role that you're interviewing for. So always ensure that you ask for the job description before your interview, go through it perfectly, and then prepare against the job description. Next, revise before your interview. So in a few slides back we saw that we have to write notes, right? So that is what is going to help you here while you revise for your interview. And google the most asked questions before you attend the interview. Always make this a practice. Google the questions which are most asked. There are a lot of websites which bring up the most asked questions along with the answers. Do that. Do not skip doing this. Even though you have your notes, also do this before your interview. And attempt mock interviews. This is so underrated but very, very essential because for a fresher or a person who has worked 4 to 5 years in a continuously in a particular firm, and you're going to attend your interview. For me, if I had attended mock interviews, it would have been much helpful for me, but I did not do that. Only later did I know how useful and important it was. So I started suggesting people, and they came back and told me this has been so much helpful because the stress of speaking to someone itself is the one bad factor that is keeping ourselves away from attending any interviews. So always attend mock interviews. There are a lot of people who conduct mock interviews for free. You can reach out to them, ask them if you have time, could you please do me some mock interviews? They will definitely help you out. Because from mock interviews, you will be asked actual questions and you will have the actual interview environment. So with that, you will be able to assess how much you know, how much you do not know, etc. And the last point, which I have always learned from where you fail. If you do not answer a question in your interview, always ensure at the end of the interview you're asking the interviewer, did I answer this incorrectly? And if I did, what is the correct answer? So that is one extra learning for you for free from that interview. So always make that a practice. If you have failed at an interview, do not bring down your energy. Always ask the interviewer, do you have any feedback? Where are the areas I have to improve myself? What are the questions I answered incorrectly? What is the correct answer for the questions that you said I answered incorrectly for? Always ensure to do that. Lastly, rank the companies for which you want to attend your interviews. If your dream company is ABC, always make sure that ABC is the last interview that you attend. Make sure you've already attended few other interviews where you know what your strength and weakness are, and then prepare for the best for your dream company. So that is the entire thing that is going to help you build a successful automation career. I hope I have covered from the technical side, the physical side, and the interview perspective as well. So I guess, yeah, and always ask for feedback. Now let's quickly jump into some Q&A, which we have. Vanshika? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes. Sorry, there was some network issue. I wasn't able to
no
turn off.
problem, no problem.
Yeah. So we have some questions that I would like to ask you. So
Yes.
first question we have is from Jyoti. The question
Yeah.
is, Srinidhi, I wish I got these suggestions from you when I had started my testing career in early 2002. Please let me know your suggestion. How much in-depth automation should be learned for a person in QA leadership roles?
All right. So when it comes to leadership roles, it is always better to have one in-depth technology, but always stay aware of all the technologies out there in the market. Why? Because when you are in the leadership role or an architect role, you are the person that is expected to say or guide the team what technology to use and what technology will best fit your project. So always read the magazines on the automation. We have all these newsletters that come up from different firms every month. So always know what technology is coming up. So if you know one technology in depth, so probably I would say, when I say one technology, one end-to-end technology, it will be the most powerful thing that as a leadership person that you can have. Why? Because for an application, when you are in a leadership role, when you are in an engineer role, you will be expected to know only your area. But when you are in a leadership role, you will be expected to know what is good for everyone or every application that you have. So you will be dealing with minimum of 5 applications in hand, correct? Because if you're building an entire system, you will have so many applications. So with respect to that, you need to know what kind of underlying technology that is present. Is it built on Java? Is it built on API? Is it built on Angular JS UI? Or we have Vue, we have React. So you should also have the knowledge of what is lying behind every application. So when you are going to suggest, because that is when, because there are certain times where an automation engineer or automation lead will not have the say of what can be used. Rather, the developers will be having. But never let that happen to us, because we are also technical people. We also know to code. We also have the power of doing it. So in that case, when your question is how much in-depth automation should be learned for a person in QE, learn one end to end. Learn one. If you say, let me take the example of Selenium Java. So since you've started your automation career in 2002, probably Selenium Java would have been the best choice for you at that point of time. So if you already know Selenium Java, make sure you know Rest Assured API as well, because that is going to be your middleware. Also know the SQL also. So when you know SQL itself, in current world, in cloud, we have this Cosmos DB, we have MongoDB, all that coming in. So if you already know SQL automation, then these are just piece of cake for you. So you just need to keep updating yourself with the technologies that are coming in. So we have API. Previously, we had a middleware layer that was completely different. So we had mainframes. So mainframes was completely different. But now this API and all have come. Those have made our lives much easier. Because if you know UI itself, make sure as a UI tester or automation engineer, I would strongly suggest everyone should know what a developer tools tab from your F12 can do, because that is where you can start speaking to your developers strongly. Okay, so we should know what the developer tools has in it. So that is where the API comes in, and from API is where the DB comes in. So always know one end to end entirely. It can be any technology, but make sure you know entirely so that we can start suggesting people. So this is the drawback of this is the advantage of this. So being in a leadership role or an architect role, you should be able to guide the team on what technology will best suit for your project or your application.
Understood, understood, got it. So we have another question from Rohan. His
Yeah.
question is, what is approach to test low code and no code platform?
Okay, in the sense, may I ask if he's asking about low code and no code automation frameworks? Because when he says platform, it is quite difficult. Rohan, is it a
Rohan, can you
framework?
try to like answer this question? Are you talking about the automation framework? Till then, we can take the next question, I
Next
think.
question. Okay.
Next question is by Mohammed Wasim. He's saying, can you please share the resume template you were displaying few minutes back?
Yeah, so you can reach out to me. I have a template on it. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I can share that with you personally as a PDF or even an editable template if possible.
Sure, that will be good. We will be dropping the LinkedIn account for Srinidhi soon in the chat. We have another question um, from Rushi. Rushi is asking, what are different frameworks we can learn along with Selenium?
Okay, so currently, excuse me. So currently we have Cucumber and TestNG. So my next question would be, if you say Selenium, what is the language that you're using? So depending on the language is where you can choose your frameworks from. So if it is Selenium Java, you can either go for Cucumber or you can go for a TestNG. But if you're moving to Python, then I would suggest, from my personal favorite is Robot Framework. So that is why I always speak about Robot Framework so much, because it is so easy and so powerful, because it is backed by Python itself. So if there is any capability that Robot Framework cannot do, writing a small piece of Python code will help you do that. That is how you would choose. And if it is Selenium Java, assuming it is Selenium Java that you asked me, if you want to have a good display of your work, then you can go for Cucumber, because it comes with an inbuilt report where you can show what has got passed, what has got failed, what has got skipped, all that. So that is also one important thing that I probably should have said but missed to say. You should always be ready to project your work. Projecting your work is what is going to pronounce what you have done. So make the best report any UI report, probably I can bring that up in my following sessions, if any, where we can discuss how to project your work. So that may go as another entire session if I start. Yeah.
Sure, sure. Thank you for answering that, Srinidhi. So we had a question from Rohan. He has just written in messages that he's asking about no code, low code application or automation tool.
Automation. Okay. So no code and low code, I would say do not go for no code, because you need to know some code. Not because we are moving very fast in part of technology, that I would say in current world. But when you go for a low code automation or low code framework, it is always better because you can showcase that you know some coding, some logic you can bring up. When it is no code, what happens is you will simply be choosing from a list of drop down, and you will simply write it, so that anybody can do. It is not necessary that you have to become an automation engineer to write a no code automation, because a no code automation anybody could do. But if you want to become a good automation engineer, I would suggest at least go for a low code automation. So one such thing is what robot framework is, and we have few other options as well. But robot framework being an open source, that is what I would suggest if you would like to go for a low code automation with good documentation, which will help you along the way where you are learning.
Understood. Got it. We have follow-up question from Rushi. She's asking, is robot framework available for Java?
Recently, they have released that robot framework can be used for Java. But then, if you are asking me whether it is compatible with Java, it robot framework requires you to install Python, but not like you have to immediately go and start writing the code in robot framework. So, robot framework itself is like a programming language, but its underlying features are written in Python. So if you probably I have to take an entire session if I'm speaking about robot framework completely. But yes, you can write it with Java, but it is not necessary that you have to know Python or Java unless and until robot framework has a capability that cannot implement on its own. Say, for instance, you have an image recognition that you want to do. Robot framework might not be able to do that. You may have to implement some image recognition features, but that is more capable in Python rather than Java. So there are instances where you have to pick and choose what is best for your requirement.
Understood. Got it. We have a question from Wasim. He's asking, we see there are plenty of mobile applications in the market. So can you suggest a best tool or best language to start learning with? This no one would bring up, but sure, we will find more demand on this in future.
Yeah. So if you're asking about how the mobile applications, definitely a good question, because we are speaking more about web UI and not about mobile automation. Solely because the mobile automation or mobile UI, the technical users are very less while it comes to using mobile applications. But then, like Selenium, we have APM. So you can start learning APM, but definitely that is also a in-demand technology in the market, but maybe not as buzzy as Selenium is. But definitely APM is where you can start your mobile automation learning, and that will definitely be always in demand because mobile is not going to go extinct in any near future.
Got it. Got it. I hope that answers your question, Wasim. We have another question from uh, Pon Pon Madhavan. So the question
Okay.
is, I come from BCom background. I'm really passionate about automation testing. Also, I've completed automation testing course. As a fresher for automation testing, how to prepare and what I need to do? Is there any possibility to get a job?
Definitely yes, but sometimes no. Practically, let me answer your question. So you are from a BCom background, that is all right, and you have done your automation testing course. Good. So if you are looking for a job immediately, then there are a lot of firms who are going to enable your job. Like Test Drive is one of those. So you can start doing courses with them. They will enable your availability into the IT industry. But however, if you want to immediately showcase your work, I would suggest take some freelancing works where you will be required. You can put yourselves out there. You can bring up the projects that you have done. Yes. So that is my answer, and you can reach out to me if, because there are companies who will hire bcom background people as well as freshers. And sometimes, but not always, when we hire freshers, that opening would come up. But there are certain stages where entry level jobs for QA engineers open up. So always be on the lookout. Be on the lookout. Is someone going to post about it? Always be active on LinkedIn. So that is something that is underrated. So LinkedIn is such a powerful platform where you can look for all the guidance, your contacts, your job, everything. So always be on the lookout if somebody is posting about it. And there will be a lot of product based firms who will hire you. And there are some what do I say? There are some platforms where you can look for such organizations, but I'm not at liberty to reveal it in this forum. However, you can reach out to me personally where I can guide you on the same.
Okay, great, great. Thank you for answering that, Srinidhi. We have a question from Siddharth next. Could you please provide tool stack for all layers you discuss considering Java as base?
Could you please provide the tool stack for all layers you discussed considering Java's? Okay. So firstly, when it is SQL, you have the inbuilt library from Microsoft itself, and you can use that library for your SQL. But if it is cloud, if it is Azure, you have the inbuilt libraries from Azure. Assuming you guys should be using Maven repository, in that case, you can right away download it. You can use a Maven structure itself for your project. So automatically, if you simply write your POM files, it will come in. But this may be a more technical answer, but then let me tell you, we have SQL libraries, we have Azure libraries, which will help you test the backend databases. And if it is API, we have the Rest Assured for Java. And if it is front end, if it is web UI, you have Selenium. If it is a Windows application, then you can go for Auto IT. And if it is a mobile application, you can go for API.
Got it, got it. I hope that answers your question, Siddharth. So we have next question from Rushabh. The question is, will the model-based testing overtake other technologies as it might become helpful in recruiting less or no automation test engineers?
Okay. So this is one question that is still alive in the market yet. Let me tell you, it is not like no automation test engineers would be required, because the technology keeps coming up. So if the model based testings are going to overtake other technologies, but there should be someone who knows to do that, right? So nobody can do it on their own. There should be some enabler who's going to do that. So we should know how to do it. So, but what to do it might be the question, but always know how to do the latest technology. When you say model based testing, then there should be some enabler who's going to do that, right? So that is why I said always stay ahead of the curve, know what you want to do. And there are certain things, if you consider what AI can do, AI cannot access anything outside that particular session. So if you want to test a file that is outside the level, then you have to have a person who's going to do the connectivity. Even though the code is there, you have to do the connectivity between those two applications. So for that, we would always be required.
Understood, got it. Next question, and I think that's the last question we have. If you have any other questions, you can drop them right now. We will take them after this. But we have a question again from Rushi. She's asking how we can advance automation knowledge if we know the basics of Selenium and frameworks.
Okay. So again, like I said, do not restrict yourself to UI automation. So you should always know the back-end automation and the middleware automation as well. Because learning Selenium is like you only have you are going for an interview and only your face has been reviewed. So that is how doing a UI automation is. You only see if the person can speak, if the person can see, if the person can smell, but you don't know what is in their brains. So the brain is the back end. So that is why you have to always know what happens in the backend as well. And you should be capable enough to test the backend like SQL, Azure database, or anything, and then do the API automation as well. So I would suggest, if you already know Selenium, if you know how to test the UI, take one step back. Learn how to do the API testing, because API, if you are doing a Google search, so you are saying, you're opening your google.com and looking for test tribe and clicking on search, what will happen is the search button is going to call a API which is in the back, and that API is going to respond back giving the search results to Google. Okay, so this is just an example. So that is what you have to do. Whether if the result in the UI is wrong, then the issue may not be in the UI, but it may lie in the API. So there are certain projects which will require you to only test the API part. So if you know Selenium, if you know the frameworks, take one step back, go to API testing. If you already know API testing, take one more step back and go to SQL testing. And now again, we have AI and ML testings as well. So that is one whole another branch. So that is something probably would be the future of automation, where we have to do the ML testing, data testing, digital testing, and AI testing.
Understood. Got it, Srinidhi. We have few more questions, and since we have some time left, we can
Yeah.
probably take them. So we have a
Yes.
question from Jyoti. She's
Yeah.
asking how to know what new features are added to a new version of automation tool.
Okay. So every time, say Selenium, let's take the example of Selenium. So recently they had released 4.8 version. Always subscribe to the newsletters where the Selenium is getting released. You can always stay on LinkedIn and subscribe to their pages. You can follow their pages where they make their official announcements, and a lot of people post about it as well. Excuse me. So we had one of the major releases from Selenium in 4.6. So that was when we don't have to use the Chrome driver to make a handshake. So that was one of the biggest headaches that we had throughout for a very long time, and we had to use some third party libraries to overcome that. But then with 4.6 version released, so I got to know about it through LinkedIn pages. So we have LinkedIn forums where they discuss about the latest technologies that come up with every release, what is happening. So you can subscribe to their newsletters. You can always, like, LinkedIn is like the official Facebook. So if a new movie gets released, you will know about it from the other social media, and if any new tool gets released, you will know about it from LinkedIn. So that is how I can say.
Got it. Understood. Understood. We have a question from Varsha. How in-depth
Yeah.
knowledge should a tester have in GitHub or Git?
Yes. Now, when you say just tester, so we as automation engineers who work, I get to work both in manual as well as automation. That I have to say, it is not like an automation engineer will only do automation, but there are certain instances where you have to choose manual as well. But then when you are focused into automation for your particular project, you will have your code base in Git. So definitely no Git. No Git, no Jenkins. I'm not No, no. It is Know. No. Learn Git and learn Jenkins. So be a DevOps engineer as well. So I think I saw one of the questions like which to start first. I think that was in Prathamesh's session. So knowing DevOps is going to be a huge weightage in your resume. Okay, because that is like you can do it on your own. They don't have to hire a new DevOps engineer to do the Git and Jenkins. So if you have written your code, you should definitely know how to push the code into your Git repository. So you have to have knowledge in Git, you have to have knowledge on Jenkins, the CI/CD tools. For us it will be CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous testing tools. We have to always know about it. Do not restrict yourself that automation engineer's role is only with learning automation language or automation tool. Selenium, Java, Cucumber. Done. No. Like you said, your question is very, very important. We have to know the surrounding, our environment, how to set up your environment, how to use the environment, how to run your code in the environment. So that is when you will have to know Git and Jenkins, or Azure DevOps also for that matter. But I would say start with Jenkins. If you are looking to learn Git, the next step would be to know Jenkins as well.
Understood. Got it.
Yeah.
That was a thank you for that answer. We have last two questions left. We have a question from Muthu. In what basis you select a question? Okay, sorry. I think Muthu, if you have a question, then just ask them in the chat because I couldn't see your question. Probably you can put your
Yeah.
question in the chat and I'll answer that for sure. I've been taking all the
Oh,
questions.
yeah, I think one question was earlier from Muthu, Vanshika.
Okay,
API
okay. I
automation
just saw
can be
that.
efficient.
Yeah, I
Yeah, yeah.
was just coming to that. API automation can be efficient through.
True. Rest
So
assured. If you are in Selenium, Java, yes, rest assured you can do API automation. But before that, I would say before starting API automation, learn about APIs, learn the response code, because you should know the application. You should before testing it, correct? So learn how API works and then start automating it. So you can use rest assured library to do the automation for API.
got it, got it. We have a question just now. How to practice the API testing when we learn it ourselves?
Okay, there are a lot of practice APIs available out there, which will give you the actual response while doing API itself. So probably let me see if I can get some practice APIs. I can share it to you here on the chat. So you can use those. There, they will have given you all the details. So what kind of response that you have to that you can expect, what kind of request you have to give, get, put, push, all that you sorry, get, put, patch, all that you will be able to see in there itself. Let me try and get one link for you. That is how I self learned API testing.
Got it, got it. Sure, you can share the link with us.
Yeah.
And I think um, That's most of the questions. There are few left, though we are also at the end of our session. So probably you can reach out to either Srinidhi directly on LinkedIn, or you can join our Discord community where people can answer your questions. So anything is good. I think there are only two, three questions left.
We can
So
answer that. No
yeah.
problem. I can take 2 to 3 minutes
So we
extra.
have a question from Chinna. What is the most valuable website to learn Selenium Java?
Okay, so for me, it has been Guru 99 tutorials point, and but mostly I have learned through video lectures, because for me, video lectures has been the best when I learn and revise. So probably you can go for any video lectures out there who are doing such great jobs in teaching. Because for me, reading is a little bit boring for me, so I usually go for video lectures. Probably Vanshika can suggest some lectures that they have as part of Selenium, Java, or Python. But with respect to Selenium and Java, I think you have a lot of websites out there. So for me, it has always been courses, video courses, because I like to be in a student teacher environment when I'm learning, rather than I have to look up, write down. No, I can hear and then write. So that is better for me.
Yeah, so we actually launched a Python course just in this session itself at the starting, and we are giving a 20% off on it also. So if you want
Perfect.
to start learning Python as the programming language, the message is pinned. You have the 20% discount code, which will be which is right now available. So you can probably start from that. Yeah,
Perfect.
one last question that we have is, do you suggest to put skill section in first page of the resume before experience history?
Yes, yes. I strongly suggest that. I will share with you guys, whoever is looking for a resume template. You can ask me, and I guess I have one YouTube video on how to write your resume as well. I'm not active on YouTube, but however, I think there is one video where I speak about how to create your own resume, just not using any paid tools. You can simply do it over PowerPoint itself. But I strongly suggest put your skills on top. After immediately writing 2 lines about yourself, put your skills on top, because the very first page should know what to hire you for. Rather than experience history, they will come to it. But when we have hundreds of profiles to review, so okay, this person has Java tick, Selenium tick, Python tick. Yes, put it on top.
Got it. Understood. Understood.
I think Sheikh Makbul has been trying to ask one question for so many times.
Yeah. So the question is, hi Srinidhi, as a manual QA for most of the freshers being in 1 2 years, as a manual QA had dilemma after learning on programming language Java after Java API Selenium, which is first one we learned to become an automation tester.
Okay, first I would suggest Selenium, because that is the most in demand technology right now. But again, Selenium is to test the front end UI alone, the website alone. But then take after you learn Selenium, I strongly suggest you learn API. So learning Selenium, a lot of people know, but Selenium and API, a less lot of people know. So be that combination. Always I would suggest be a full stack tester. Know how to test UI, know how to test API, know how to test the backend. When I say backend, it is the database. But then, if you are asking me Selenium or API, I would say first Selenium, then go to API, but also ensure to go to the database testing as well. And
Got it.
one
Understood.
extra thing would be learn cloud automation as well. So if you want to be in the top few.
Got it. Got it. Understood.